What I want to do next is transition to our dynamic panel. This is really exciting. This is going to have 4 people participate. 1, 2, 3, 4. I feel like the count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be action-packed. This is going to feature a solutioneer, alumni solutioneer, an ASU faculty member. That person is going to be really fun. Trust me. You're like, wow, a PhD on here? It's going to blow your socks off, right? And an employer in the field and all these levels of GreenLight engagement to discuss what the future of work and sustainability looks like and how GreenLight Solutions fits into that. So as I introduce you, I encourage you in order to come up here, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Our panelists' bios. First one is our wonderful student, Lauren Taylor. Lauren, come on up. Lauren Taylor is a student. That's right. I like it. Is a student at ASU studying sustainability. She's a bear at the Honors College and is currently a solutioneer serving as the vice president of recruitment. Lauren also serves as an energy efficiency specialist in the Industrial Assessment Center at ASU and is an assistant house manager at ASU's Gamage Auditorium. Can you give me tickets to Wicked? Thanks so much. We're going to talk after the show. Quick sidebar, I had tickets. My spouse thought that they were at a 10 o'clock. Turns out that they were actually at 3 o'clock and we missed the show. That was a lot of fun. Alumni, is going to be Aaron Young. Aaron, come on down, is a graduate of ASU. That's right, with a BS and a minor in engineering. This is like the Price is Right. It's wonderful. And he was an early solutioneer before he graduated back in the dark ages of 2014, right? And now is a senior manager of commercial networks and fleets at Electrify America, enabling organizations to deploy their own not just fast, ultra fast DC fast charging networks, leveraging the expertise, and scale of the largest 150 kV. That's a lot of juice, right? A lot of energy right there. Only charging network in North America. So thank you for being here. Up next is going to be our employer, Maxwell Scott. Come on down. Max is a graduate of ASU with a BA in Sustainability and International Development and a graduate of the London School of Economics and Political Science, where he got the mustache, and a Master of Science in International Relations and serves on the GL Board of Directors. Right now, he's at Microsoft as a senior program manager in the Office of Responsible AI, where he's building the next Terminator, creating scalable frameworks that guide teams who develop the most sensitive applications. See, this is gobbledygook for the Terminator, of artificial intelligence toward the responsible development and deployment of emerging technology, adhering to Microsoft's responsible AI standard. Up next, we have our dynamic faculty, Dr. Michael Schoon. He's joining us here. He received his BS. You can clap for Dr. Schoon, right? It's allowed to clap for a professor. He's got a long list of things, and he can talk about that in his overall keynote. In addition to that, he said I could make up facts about him that I've known Dr. Schoon for a while. He's protected horses in the Greater Salt River Basin. He's actually not just protected them, he's rode them. Right? He caught a wild horse with his bare hands and took life, literally and metaphorically, by the mane in advancing collaborative stakeholder engagement of multiple parties. Part of that is true, part of it is totally fictitious, and I'm going to leave it up to you in order to determine what it is. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to invite Kevin back in order to discuss and lead this dynamic panel. Back over to you, Kevin.
And thank you all for coming. Some of you traveled quite far to be here, so thank you for doing so. Others just down the street, still, thank you. The panel is on the future of work, and I wanted to open just by talking a little bit about the context here. And I've got this up to quote specifically. So Larry Fink, chairperson and CEO of BlackRock Financial, which is the largest investment portfolio on the planet by market share, he's made some really bold statements. You know, this is a guy who cares about profit for his shareholders, right? And shareholder value as his primary mission for his company. And so his 2020 letter to the CEOs of all of the companies in their portfolio, they do this every year. And in 2020, it was a really transformative message that he delivered. He said specifically, and I quote, "Our investment conviction is that sustainability and climate integrated portfolios can provide better risk-adjusted returns to investors. And Where we feel companies and boards are not producing effective sustainability disclosures or implementing frameworks for managing these issues, we will hold board members accountable. So in simple terms, sustainability is really good for business, good for the bottom line, good for shareholder value. So when we started with GreenLight 10 years ago, we didn't want to work with people who didn't understand that. We weren't here to convince people that sustainability was good for business. We already knew it was. We were wanting to work with the people who understood that and wanted to advance it. And that's still what we do today, help people move that needle and advance it. Last year, his letter further adds to this value. He said, we focus on sustainability not because we're environmentalists, but because we're capitalists and fiduciaries to our clients. So this is best practice in business. Meanwhile, the Security and Exchange Commission last year proposed new rules requiring publicly listed companies to not only disclose the risks that are reasonably likely to have a material impact on their business, results, or operations or financial condition, which is standard reporting practice, but also to disclose information about its direct greenhouse gas emissions and indirect emissions from purchased electricity or other forms of energy, as well as certain types of GHG emissions from upstream and downstream activities in its value chain. So that is expected to be implemented this year. So that's every publicly traded company is going to have to start reporting on these things very soon. Meanwhile, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, earns more advising income on sustainability than it does in the oil and gas sector, and only works for companies that have committed to their own decarbonization targets. So this is just business. This is how it is. So we're not going to try to convince anybody of that. What we're going to do is help you get there. And hopefully, GreenLight is here to help make that change. And hopefully our panelists can help shed some light on this topic as well. So I'd like to start with Lauren. As a current solutioneer, what inspired you? You're obviously involved in a lot of things. What inspired you to also give your time as a volunteer to help with GreenLight?
So I have always really been passionate about sustainability. It's something I've known I wanted to go into forever. I wanted to do it in university. I wanted to pursue it as a career. I see a lot of, environmental, social justice issues in the world around me, and I really want to be able to contribute to a future that's sustainable and where I can contribute to those solutions. So when I started studying at ASU, I was just in these classes and I was learning a lot, but I kind of fell into that kind of feeling of hopelessness you can get as a sustainability student. I'm sure a lot of people have experienced it as well. And I just really wanted to be able to get hands into the field and get a real world experience, which is kind of where I found GreenLight. And since I've been in GreenLight, I've been able to get these experiences and know that I'm contributing to these sustainability impacts and contributing to my community, and while I'm also learning about all these skills like project management and teamwork and collaboration. And it's really been able to help me feel prepared for the professional sustainability world and get experience while also making a difference and really contributing to my community.
Fantastic. So thank you for that. That gives some context because, what you do as a volunteer solutioneer is above and beyond. And not only are you not paid, you pay a small donation to participate. So it's important, isn't it? And I remember that as a student, the doom and gloom of sustainability. It's like the world's crashing down around us, but wait, we can turn the Titanic before we crash, right? How do we do this? But now we need to know how, right? Awesome, thank you. So Aaron, I want to move on to you next. As an alumni solutioneer who's now out in the field, what was said or asked about GreenLight during your interview conversations after you graduated?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, and thank you for having me here. Glad to talk about this and excited to see how far everything has come in the last 10 years. But I think it's a great question and a really easy one to answer for me. I mean, I was a solutioneer back in 2013, 2014, and I was looking at graduation and was like, oh, this is scary. I need some experience. I'm learning about all the things that are wrong in the world and all the solutions, but how do I get a job doing this? So actually the first job I had out of college was working for an energy efficiency company and renewable energy company, Ameresco. And I had the great opportunity to work in GreenLight. And my first project was actually doing energy efficiency and renewable energy recommendations for General Dynamics. And so when I was in that first interview, I had a great applicable experience that I was able to bring and pitch to them as, I have experience doing this. And so that was, I think, really what was key for me in my career. And then it was really just building from there about the next job. And the next job is like, you always need to build off of the experience you had. And when I was a senior at ASU, I was really looking for how do I get that experience? And I had the great opportunity to do that. And it really landed me that first job out of college.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you're right. You got to build off each experience, right? And so I remember when we started this movement, we were getting the education and we were hearing from other graduates that the degree gave them the theory they needed to go into an interview and talk about sustainability. And then it would get them the interview. And then they say, okay, so what can you do? And they'd go, I don't know. I haven't done it. I don't know. I can talk about it. I've got the theory, but I haven't put it into practice. And that's really the bulb for GreenLight. Like, we need to go do this thing. So thank you.
Yeah.
So, Professor Schoon, what are you seeing as trends in academic focus for teaching sustainability as applied in business?
So I'll emphasize 2 points right now. One is that there's an increasing move. I know many of you have experienced this, some of the recent grads as well, on micro-credentialing, starting to think beyond traditional forms of education to think about what are the needs, what do employers want their new employees to have, whether it's ESG certifications, other things like this. So this is one thing that we're trying to pursue here at ASU, looking at opportunities to get some of those trainings. The second is, and you can see it in the different types of projects that GreenLight's run, the notion of sustainability over the last 10 years has really changed from people talking about sustainability and thinking, oh, this is recycling or composting or something like that. That's sustainability. So, what are the jobs? And there are some jobs that do that, right? Some important jobs that do that. But sustainability is really much, much broader than that. As Kevin said, Larry Fink is talking about how it's a fundamental part of business. My colleagues from when I was in consulting also are talking about, oh, you're right in the center of it. You're right at the heart of it. Sustainability is about increasing efficiencies. It's about social justice and environmental justice. It's all of the pillars of sustainability that we talk about regularly. So it's shifting much further away from this doom and gloom message to what are the things that we can do and being very proactive about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, as we learned in sustainability studies, diversity is the key to resilience. So the more different skill sets you can learn that you can apply in the field, the more resilient you'll be in your job search. Cool. Thank you. So, Max, what are you seeing as someone who works out in the field, who is aware of the hiring that's going on? What do you see businesses looking to hire? What sort of skill sets, what sort of strengths do you see in potential sustainability professionals?
Yeah, some excellent points have been raised today. The first thing I would say is that certainly the field of sustainability has evolved a lot over the last 10 years. And one thing that I've seen is sustainability has become more of a practice. There are now enterprise sustainability goals, there are core concepts, there are frameworks, and these are an established field within business and within different dimensions of private sector engagement. So there's foundational knowledge that is key, and that foundational knowledge can come out of an organization like ASU. We also teach some of that as a part of GreenLight Solutions. But on top of that, there's this other piece, which you mentioned, Kevin, as well, which is the resiliency piece, where beyond having that foundational understanding, you now need to be able to cope with a period of immense change, which we're entering into now. And you can do that by having a growth mindset where you are approaching constant learning and continuing to adapt and identifying where the opportunities are and then growing. Professor Schoon mentioned micro-credentialing. I think that was a really good idea. That's something that I would encourage people to consider. employers look for these types of things. They want people to have a growth mindset. And then beyond that foundational understanding and the growth mindset, I would also encourage creativity, because this is a field that's rapidly becoming more and more established. There are more opportunities to learn, but beyond that, you need to build upon what's already been done. And that's where creativity comes into play. And we learn a lot of that as a part of GreenLight Solutions and in our projects that we do. But I'd encourage you to think about that in your daily lives as well.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate the perspective. So to kind of tie it back to present day, as a current student solutioneer, Lauren, what projects have you been involved with GreenLight? Or what's your focus?
So my first project that I was a part of was in spring of 2022, and I was part of the Shape Up project, which we saw a little bit of in that video. So our goal of that project was to create a booklet that discussed sustainable event planning. So we were trying to educate people on how to plan sustainable events. And a big part of this project was compromise, honestly. A lot of it, we had all these really big ideas, but we have a semester to do it. So I learned a great deal about how to compromise with stakeholders, about how to discuss with the team, how to do these things, but also get them done in a time frame that's shortened and with limited resources and stuff like that. So that was a really good experience for me to learn about all the ways that a project works in the real world. It was my first time working in a team like that, so it was really good experience. And the second project that I was a part of was for the dynamic group, which I was the project lead for. And in this project, our goal was to create an informational video, which went into the details of energy auditing and how to get a residential energy audit. And in this project, the main thing that was like a great experience for me was getting that leadership position. I have had leadership roles in the past, but getting to work on a sustainability project as a leadership position was great experience. And I got to take charge and do things like planning meetings, working with my team, meeting with our project partner, and getting to talk with all these ideas and then implement these ideas and see it become a real thing. So it was a really great experience, and all of those skills that I collected throughout that led to the success of the entire project itself.
Fantastic, thank you. Sounds like you learned some valuable skills.
I did, I will say.
Great, good, glad to hear it. We're doing the thing. It's great. We're getting out there, we're doing it. So with that, I want to ask Aaron, since your career is focused on renewable energy and the infrastructure, how would you say that work is building toward a sustainable future? Obviously, it's essential. And how would you say that your focus on sustainability has given you a unique perspective or an edge throughout your career?
Yeah, I think that for me, the background in sustainability that I had from academia was really helpful in understanding kind of the broad perspective, the 3 pillars of sustainability, and just how to approach problems holistically. So when I got into the renewable energy industry, I was obviously interested in solar and all those kinds of things. And I went from energy efficiency to working at an electric utility. And I got the opportunity to work on electric vehicles kind of by happenstance. It wasn't even in my job description. And I think the perspective of sustainability kind of gave me the ability to look at this and think, as a utility, this is like a glorious opportunity to work on something that's good for business for them. It's good for the community. It's good for air pollution. It just it checks all the boxes of winning things for everybody. And so I think having that perspective made me realize that, I think, before my colleagues did at the company and a lot of other electric utilities. And it brought this passion to that issue. And so I was able to try to advance it. I was very motivated to advance it at that company, and got a lot of opportunity and exposure because of that throughout the company. And people recognized the passion, and I think they appreciated the fact that I was listening to what was the concerns were of the utility, and translating it into how it's beneficial to them, while it also benefits all these other aspects of sustainability. So I think it was really helpful in that aspect. And then I really just kind of jumped on it from there, and then kind of have just been really deep into electrification and all the benefits of it. So I think it's really helped me bring that perspective and that passion to it.
Excellent. Way to leverage a unique opportunity. It's great. Speaking of unique opportunities, Max, moving from foreign service work in the government to now being involved with responsible artificial intelligence from Microsoft. Could you share a little bit about the trends and needs for sustainability professionals in government and the tech industry and where you kind of see all that craziness going?
Sure. So I've been really fortunate to be on the cutting edge of technological change and be able to see that as a former sustainability student, both within government and then now the private sector. And I can say that both kind of sectors are quite different. In government right now, there's kind of a demographic shift where a lot of the people who joined in the 80s and 90s are now retiring. So now there's an opportunity for younger and younger people to bring in more and more ideas. And one of the things that I really appreciated about my education at ASU was the idea of being a catalyst and being a change agent. And I think right now in government, there's a lot of opportunity to do that. There's a lot of change that's happening. And with this demographic shift, there's a lot of opportunity to be heard and to have that level of impact. But transitioning now to the private sector where I'm at, one thing I will say is that change is happening at pace. And that is how you could characterize what's happening in the tech sector right now, especially as it relates to artificial intelligence and some of the innovation that's happening in technology. There's an immense level of speed that's happening. And so this sort of circles back to what I was saying earlier about resilience and this growth mindset. If you want to be able to keep pace with everything that's happening and keep pace with the level of innovation and change, that has to come from inside. And we hope through GreenLight Solutions to teach those types of skills so that you can be self-motivated and be able to leverage that resilience when it's necessary. But certainly there's a lot of opportunity, both in the government and the private sector. And definitely ASU is a great place if you want to be prepared for the future for that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Max. That's some interesting insight on a wild and rapidly changing world we live in, for sure. And, you know, it's something it's bigger than all of us. You know, we're all just little humans, you know, think about the vastness of the universe and planet Earth, the big pale blue dot that we're all hurtling around the universe in. And at the same time, we each have the opportunity to make change. Each of you are out there doing that work and making change. Thank you for that. We do have a few moments for one or two questions from the audience. And so does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments for the panelists while we're here? We didn't exactly prepare you for that. So, you know, I don't expect you to be ready on the fly. One in the front here.
Yeah. So all of you, except for Professor Schoon, are out in the world working. So the question I have is for a student that's maybe nearing the end of their time learning, what's like the number one piece of advice you would give to that person? Or said differently, what's the, if you do it again, what's the one thing that you could have done differently? Something that.
Great question. So the question was, and in case anyone online couldn't hear it, was, given your experience now out in the world, what would you do differently? What would you have learned from? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to. I'd say one thing, enjoy school while you're here because you're gonna miss it. So don't be too focused on the future. I think that's the one thing I'd do different. But I think the biggest advice I'd give is like just bring your passion to your interviews when you're going for it. I mean, when I'm hiring people, that's what really I look for, and that's what stands out is somebody who's passionate about the company and what they want to do in that role. If you bring that, that's like I don't know, more than 50% of it.
Great.
Sure.
Thank you, Aaron. Anyone else have a thought?
Sure. I would just add, you know, when you graduate, you'll be out in the world, and out in the world, you'll be tested and you will fail and you will stumble. And that'll be quite difficult. There's kind of two different ways you can react to that. One way is to be like, oh man, I messed this up. I didn't get this job. That sucks. You know, I'm not going to try it again. Another way is what I would recommend, which is to lean into it and to say, what did I learn from this experience? And if it's something that you're really passionate about and something that you really want to do, pursue it relentlessly, regardless of how many times it takes. And just again, reflecting back on what I said earlier, the growth mindset of every time you make a mistake or every time you stumble, try and learn from it. And that's not necessarily something that school can prepare you for. It's something that can happen through your own life experience. but I would encourage you to carry forward that mindset. And as long as you do, you'll find success.
Thank you. If you can remember those two things, I think you'll do all right. I want to give each of you a little thank you gift here. Thank you from the GreenLight team for coming out and getting on stage and embarrassing yourselves with us. And I want to thank you in the audience for coming out and taking time with us to listen to our dialogue. Hopefully it was engaging and hopefully you learned something and hopefully you're inspired and excited. And thank you for your time tonight. And one other thank you to my mom. Thank you, Mom, for your support. Happy birthday.